I think Nick Saban has exactly what he wants at Alabama. Yesterday, it was a very ho-hum final score. It was 38-19. And this is a far cry from the 59-10 or 63-17 that you would expect when they had Tua Tagovailoa there. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this very clearly. I think Nick Saban likes this combination that he has on this team better than he had on those teams. And I'll tell you the reason why. Mac Jones at quarterback was very efficient for them yesterday. He did everything that they need him to do. He's got elite wide receiver skill, talent still on that team, but they also have the pieces for a dominant run game. They didn't have dominant rushing numbers yesterday. They have the offensive line to do it. They have the skill in the backfield to do it. And here's the other big takeaway for Alabama. That defense looked like Alabama. Physically, they looked about as good as an Alabama defense has looked in a while, but they were fast. That's what I noticed. They were fast, very decisive, and they played a lot of young guys who also fit that description. Great blend of size and speed defensively. But what I want to remind you is Alabama's no different than every other team. Yesterday was the version 1.0 of this year's team. So stands to reason if you believe in week over week incremental improvement, yesterday was the floor for Alabama. It's going to be a really good team. And when they get that run game where they want it, it usually takes them a few weeks to get there. When they get there, they're not hanging 60 on people. What they will play is a brand of football that is so much lower in variance. It's so much higher in reward while being lower in risk than what they've done in the past few years. And it's going to take a little bit longer to pull away from teams. The margins of victory may be a little more compressed, but yet the fate of the game will be well within hand long before they've stretched it to 40 points. I think Nick Saban's got exactly what he wants. When they get rolling, when they peak, in other words, they'll be right there with Clemson and Ohio State. I firmly believe that. Auburn 29, Kentucky 13. So I had a back and forth with one of you yesterday in the comment section. Listen, I've got all the respect in the world for you, and you come in here by the hundreds, and you give your score predictions. That's great. That's what this is. That's why the comment section is there. And I encourage you to do that. And if you give me score predictions, or if you tell me I'm going to be wrong on something, and you come back after the game, I'm there for it. I'm there to listen to you. Even if I'm mad about it, I'm there to listen to you. What I'm never here for, and what I probably just delete most of the time, is people who are ghosts in the pregame, and then they want to talk after the game. Guys, I could go 10 for 10 giving you the correct lotto numbers if you would let me watch the drawing before I picked. What kind of skill is there in that? Most of the time, the grammar is so atrocious, I don't even get through to the logic of it. I just delete it. But one of you came in yesterday, and you said, well, I guess your model was wrong on this. And if you were new to the show, we give you our own take on every game. We give you the Vegas number. We give you our number. We use separate numbers to arrive at what our number is going to be. That's just a true projection on what we think the margin of victory will be for the favorite. So the line was Auburn minus 7 to 7.5, and we had Auburn winning by 4. So they won by, what did they win? 16. They won by 16. So someone comes in the chat yesterday and says, I guess your model was wrong. No, it wasn't wrong at all. We got exactly what we thought we'd get from this game. In fact, I was very happy with the way our model performed in this game yesterday. And you just have to understand why we do this. Like, what is a model? It's an aggregate of 1,000 simulations of a game. It's football, guys. They score in 3s and 7s. So one bounce of the ball could equal 7 14-point swings. You're not going to nail every final score. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get a better read on this than an odds maker has, than a Vegas number has. I want you to think about something here. And I'll explain to you why a 16-point margin, while we thought it was going to be 4, was perfect performance from our model. We value a turnover at about 4.5 points, okay? So yesterday, Auburn wins the game 29-13. That's a 16-point win. We thought they would win by 4 points. They were +3 in the turnover battle. So that's good for 13.5 points. 13.5, they won by 16. You subtract 16, 13.5, you get Auburn by about 2.5. So that's about 2 points away from where we thought the final would be. We thought Kentucky would cover. We thought it would be a nail-biter. There is no system known to man that can forecast turnovers. So we always assume 0-0 or even in the turnover battle. Auburn won the turnover battle. Auburn won the game yesterday. It's a very good win for Auburn. I'm just saying the game went how we thought it would. Like, our model nailed that. We just +3 turnovers is something you can't see coming. Several reasons to I think there are several reasons to believe this Auburn team probably has a little bit higher ceiling than a lot of folks have thought. I think they're the greatest unknown. We called them the great mystery team in college football in 2020. They didn't sparkle yesterday, but there were parts of them that did. I thought they answered a lot of questions defensively. I think they have to overall be very happy with the way that certain elements of that defensive front performed yesterday. But having said that, Kentucky outgained them. Kentucky was on the field longer. Kentucky ran more plays. These are things that don't matter if you win the game. But moving forward, it kind of does matter when you're trying to forecast what a team is. They got an all-SEC wide receiver in Seth Williams. And some would have told you he was that caliber last year. They just didn't have the quarterback to take advantage of it. Well, Bo Nix, listen, I think it's fair to say he's progressed, which is more than we've said for Auburn quarterbacks in the past that are homegrown under Gus Malzahn. So in and of itself, that's already a comforting thing. Anthony Schwartz still runs like a sub-3.5 40, so he's still out there. They've got a couple of elements. I would like them to be deeper in how many of those all-SEC caliber elements they have on the perimeter, but at linebacker group is exactly what we expected. So there are elements, there are parts of this team which have only scratched the surface of what they're capable of. They got a shot this week to go to Georgia. They're a 7 to 7.5 point dog. They go up there and win this week. Oh, I can tell you, what do we have? We got about 1,400 people watching the show right now. That'd be over 2,000. In fact, Colin, either outcome next week probably means a huge spike in traffic. We got a lot of Auburn and Georgia folks who watch. So it's a good win for Auburn. You got to be sick if you're Mark Stoops, because that thing went exactly how he wanted it to go. If you drew it up, that's exactly how you would draw it up, man. They were cutting. They were slow bleeding Auburn, paper cut after paper cut, and turnover. That exchange towards the half, where Kentucky just flat out scored a touchdown, and then the SEC said, you know that touchdown you just scored? No, you actually didn't score one. And then the next play, one of the most atrocious decisions of the afternoon anywhere, was Terry Wilson throwing the pick. And then Auburn tries to return that for a pick six, and then they get called, what was it, illegal block, targeting, whatever the case was. Just a brutal exchange there for the SEC officiating office. I am not a guy who normally bangs on officiating. I don't do that. I just thought it was a terrible day for the conference yesterday. It was a great day that they were playing football, though, so I'm not going to bang them too much. Let's move on. Tennessee wins 31-27 over South Carolina. Well, some of you pointed this out, and you were right. My biggest fear for Tennessee was that special teams was going to come back to bite them. I didn't think they had gotten a lot of their guys enough reps because they had had a lot of guys out with COVID. And while Tennessee did not have what you would call an A+ or A- performance special teams-wise yesterday, neither of these teams did, because special teams was pretty atrocious for South Carolina too. And just when it looked like South Carolina was about to get the ball with a chance to win it, what happens? Something that I wish we used a different term to describe occurred. The old inadvertent touch. And you see why I'm uncomfortable with it. The old inadvertent South Carolina touch on a punt, which I'm quite frankly surprised doesn't happen more often. With as many guys who are around a ball, and as strange as that ball can bounce, I'm surprised the old inadvertent touch doesn't happen more often. But boy, did it touch South Carolina at the wrong time. So, Carolina loses the game. Tennessee wins. I don't think that there's much to break down here. This is not a game where you would sit there and take away things that are really going to matter a whole lot in Week 8. I don't think either of these teams in Week 8 will look remotely like they did yesterday. But if I were a Tennessee fan, here's my advice to you. If you ever, over the next week, feel the need to complain about anything that happened yesterday, I want you to remember two words. One of them is Georgia, and the other one is state. Georgia State. And then if you still are mouthy, I got three more letters for you. They are B, Y, and U. You're 1-0. Take it and move on. You got Missouri coming to town this week. More on that game in a little bit. Same questions remain for South Carolina. I don't really know which direction you go. I look at the team, and usually even with subpar teams, there are some rays of hope. There are areas that you can lean on. There are areas that are dependable that you know you can count on. What are those for South Carolina? What are the facets of that team that that's going to show up for us? Like this element, ground game is going to be there. This passing attack is going to be there. Man, our edge rushers are going to be there. Our lockdown corners are going to be there. None of that exists. This is not a terrible team, but they're playing in the wrong conference to just be a little below average. Because below average gets you 2-8 or 3-7 in this year down here. And by the way, final piece of advice to Will Muschamp. The camera's always rolling, man. I don't care if you think you're playing around. The camera's always rolling. And if those of you out there who don't know what I'm talking about, we can't play it. It has one of the worst expletives known to the English language, but Will Muschamp said a dirty word, and boy, did it leak yesterday in a big way.